The grand hall of the Velenthor Imperial Palace stretched before them like a cathedral of stars. Thousands of lights floated in the air, representing every world in the Galactic Council. Jinho walked slowly beside Mireille, his footsteps silent on the crystalline floor. Around them, aliens of every shape and size filled the chamber. Some had wings, others had scales, and a few looked like nothing that had ever lived on Earth. Jinho wore a simple black suit. No medals, no decorations, nothing fancy. That was the human way. Keep it simple. Keep it honest. Mireille carried a data tablet, her fingers moving quickly across the screen as she reviewed the latest reports. She looked young, maybe 30, but her eyes were sharp and missed nothing. At the center of the chamber sat Empress Valtrine. Her throne was carved from a single piece of red crystal that seemed to glow from within. She was tall, nearly 3 meters, with skin that shimmered like oil on water. 4 arms rested on the armrests of her throne, each one decorated with rings that could buy a small planet. Her face was beautiful in an alien way, but her eyes were cold. Behind her stood dozens of Draknath soldiers, their armor polished to a mirror shine. The meeting had been going on for hours. Various representatives spoke about trade routes, resource rights, and border disputes. Jinho had said nothing. He simply watched and listened. That was also the human way. Listen first, speak last. High Chancellor Thoros floated near the center of the room. He was ancient, older than most civilizations in the galaxy. His insect-like body was covered in ceremonial robes that rippled with colors humans had no names for. When he spoke, his voice buzzed and clicked, but the translator devices everyone wore made his words clear. The next matter concerns territorial claims in the Outer Rim sectors, Thoros announced. Empress Valtrine has requested the floor. The Empress rose from her throne. Even standing still, she commanded attention. Her voice was smooth, like honey mixed with poison. Honored members of the Council. The Draknath Empire has brought civilization to 47 worlds in the past decade. We have ended wars, cured diseases, and raised primitive species to the stars. This is our gift to the galaxy. Some council members nodded. Others shifted uncomfortably. Everyone knew what bringing civilization meant. The Draknath Empire would arrive at a world, offer protection, and slowly take control until nothing remained of the original culture. It happened over and over, and the Council did nothing to stop it. There is one system that requires our attention, Valtrine continued. The Kepler 442 system. It sits at the edge of the Outer Rim, unclaimed and unused. My fleets are prepared to bring this system under Imperial protection within the week. Mireille's fingers stopped moving on her tablet. She looked at Jinho, her expression unchanged, but he could see the tension in her shoulders. Jinho took a slow breath and stood up. Your Majesty, he said quietly. His voice was calm, almost gentle. I must respectfully disagree with your assessment. The chamber fell silent. Hundreds of eyes turned toward the human delegation. Most species in the galaxy saw humans as newcomers, barely worth noticing. Humanity had only joined the Galactic Council 50 years ago. 50 years was nothing compared to empires that had existed for thousands of years. Empress Valtrine looked down at Jinho. Her face showed amusement, like an adult watching a child try to explain something complicated. The human speaks. How delightful. Please, enlighten us. What could you possibly disagree with? Oh. Jinho walked forward slowly until he stood in the center of the chamber. He looked small compared to the aliens around him, but he did not seem afraid. The Kepler 442 system is not unclaimed. It falls under human protection. We have maintained a presence there for 15 years. Several council members whispered to each other. The Empress tilted her head, studying Jinho like he was an interesting insect. A presence? I see no human colonies there, no military installations, no registered claims with the Council. The system is empty. Appearances can be deceiving, Your Majesty, Jinho replied. We have our reasons for being there, and we have every right under galactic law to maintain our interests in that system. Valtrine's amusement faded slightly. One of her 4 hands made a dismissive gesture. Humanity is new to galactic politics. Perhaps you do not understand how these matters work. The Draknoth Empire has claimed the system. We have the strength to enforce that claim. What does humanity have? A few dozen worlds? A small fleet? You should be grateful we allow you to participate in this council at all. Other species in the chamber made sounds that might have been laughter. To them, humanity was still learning its place in the galaxy. Humans had no ancient warrior traditions, no massive fleets that darkened the stars, no weapons that could crack planets. They were scientists and explorers, not conquerors. Jinho did not raise his voice. He did not show anger or frustration. He simply spoke clearly and calmly. Your Majesty, I strongly advise you to reconsider. You are stepping where you should not have. The Empress stared at him for a long moment. Then she laughed. It was not a kind laugh. Is that a threat, human? Are you threatening the Draknoth Empire? No, Your Majesty. It is a warning, a warning. Valtrine repeated the words slowly, tasting them. How amusing. Tell me, little human, what will you do when my fleets enter the system? Will you send a strongly worded letter? Will you file a complaint with the council? Will you beg us to leave? Jinho met her eyes without blinking. We will do what we must to protect our interests. I am telling you now, clearly and officially, that entering the Kepler 442 system without human authorization will be considered an act of aggression. We will respond accordingly. End quote. High Chancellor Thoros floated forward, his ancient voice tired. Perhaps we should discuss this matter further before any action is taken. Diplomacy requires patience. But Empress Valtrine was done with patience. She had made her decision before the meeting even started. This was just theater. A chance to show the galaxy that the Draknoth Empire took what it wanted. There is nothing to discuss. My fleets will proceed as planned. If humanity wishes to file a formal protest, they may do so through the proper channels. This matter is closed. She sat back down on her throne, and her soldiers moved closer. A clear signal that she would hear no more arguments. Other council members looked uncomfortable, but none spoke up. That was how galactic politics worked. The strong did what they wanted, and the weak complained quietly afterward. Jinho stood in the center of the chamber for a few more seconds. Then he nodded once and walked back to his seat beside Mireille. She leaned close and whispered, "They are not going to listen." "I know," Jinho said quietly. "But we gave them a chance. We warned them clearly. What happens next is their choice." Mireille looked at her tablet, at the data that scrolled across the screen. Numbers, coordinates, fleet positions. Everything was ready. Everything had been ready for years. She closed the tablet and looked at her friend and colleague. How long until their fleets reach the system? 72 hours, Jinho said. 3 days. Then we have 3 days to prepare. Jinho shook his head slightly. We have been preparing for 15 years, Mireille. The next 3 days are just waiting to see if they truly mean to do this. The meeting continued around them, moving on to other matters as if nothing important had happened. To most of the galaxy, nothing important had happened. A small dispute between a new species and an old empire. It would be resolved quickly and forgotten even faster. That was what everyone believed. But Jinho sat quietly in his seat, his face calm, his hands folded in his lap. Inside, he felt heavy. He knew what was coming. He knew what humanity had built in the shadows. He knew what would happen when the Draknoth Empire crossed the line. He had given them a warning. That was all anyone could ask. He had stood before the most powerful empire in the galaxy and told them clearly, "You are stepping where you should not have. They had not listened. Now they would learn why humanity warned only once. The human delegation's quarters were quiet. Jinho sat at a desk, looking at a photograph. It was old, printed on actual paper, something rare in an age of digital everything. The photo showed a family, a man, a woman, and 2 children, standing in front of a newly built house. Behind them, an alien sky stretched purple and gold. They were smiling. Mireille entered the room carrying 2 cups of coffee. She set one down beside Jinho and sat across from him. She had seen the photo before. Everyone in the human diplomatic corps knew about Jinho's family. Kepler 442b? She asked quietly. Jinho nodded but said nothing. He picked up the coffee and took a sip, grateful for something warm and familiar. Outside the window, the stars moved slowly past. The diplomatic station orbited a neutral moon, far from any homeworld. It was designed to be safe, untouchable, a place where even enemies could meet without fear. Mireille opened her tablet and began bringing up files. The younger delegates are asking questions. They want to know why this system matters so much. They know about the memorial, but they do not understand the full picture. Then show them, Jinho said. They need to understand what is at stake. An hour later, the entire human delegation gathered in the conference room. There were 12 of them, ranging from young analysts, fresh from Earth, to seasoned diplomats who had spent decades in space. They sat around a long table, while Mireille stood at the front, a holographic display floating behind her. 30 years ago, Mireille began, humanity launched its first major colony mission beyond the solar system. The target was Kepler 442b, a planet in the Kepler 442 system. It was perfect for human life. The right temperature, the right atmosphere, the right distance from its star. We called it New Horizon. The holographic display showed images of the colony. Buildings rising from red soil, farms spreading across valleys, children playing in parks under an alien sun. It looked peaceful. It looked like hope. 50,000 people volunteered to go, Mireille continued. They left Earth on 12 colony ships. The journey took 8 years. When they arrived, they built a new world. For 5 years, New Horizon thrived. People were born there. Families grew. They sent messages back to Earth, telling us about their lives, their dreams. The images changed. Now the display showed families waving at cameras, engineers showing off new buildings, farmers standing beside strange crops that grew in alien soil. Then, without warning, it ended. The display went dark. The room was silent. Mireille's voice was steady, but everyone could hear the weight in her words. A rogue neutron star passed through the system. We did not see it coming. It was small, dark, invisible, until it was too late. The gravitational effects were catastrophic. Earthquakes shattered every building. The atmosphere ignited from tidal friction. Within 6 hours, every human on New Horizon was dead. Some of the younger delegates looked down. One wiped her eyes. By the time our rescue ships arrived, there was nothing left but ruins. We recovered what we could. Personal effects, data logs, bodies. Jinho's wife and 2 children were among the dead. Mireille glanced at Jinho, who sat at the far end of the table, his face expressionless. 3,000 other families received similar news. The holographic display showed images of the memorial that humanity had built on Kepler 442c, the system's outer moon. A simple stone wall, with 50,000 names carved into it. Nothing fancy, nothing decorative, just names, each one representing a life that ended too soon. After the disaster, humanity made a decision, Mireille said. We would never be caught unprepared again. We would protect our people, no matter the cost. The Kepler 442 system became our testing ground for that promise. The display changed again, showing technical schematics. Defense platforms, weapon systems, Sensor arrays. For 15 years, we have been building the most advanced defensive network in human space. Kepler 442 is not just a memorial. It is a fortress. A young analyst named Bora raised her hand. Why keep it secret? Why not tell the galaxy what we have there? Mireille smiled slightly. Because the galaxy sees us as weak. We are new, inexperienced, harmless. That perception is useful. Let them think we are just scientists and explorers. Let them think we have nothing but soft words and good intentions. When someone finally pushes too hard, they will learn the truth. Another delegate, an older man named Taman, spoke up. The Draknath Empire has military strength far beyond ours. Even with our defenses, can we really stop them? Jinho finally spoke. His voice was quiet but clear. We do not need to stop them forever. We only need to make the cost too high. We need to show them that attacking humanity is not worth what they will lose. He stood and walked to the front of the room. The holographic display responded to his presence, showing a map of the galaxy. Human space was marked in blue. A small cluster of stars at the edge of everything. The Draknath Empire was marked in red, a massive sprawl that covered thousands of systems. Humanity has always understood one thing better than most species, Jinho said. We understand preparation. We know how to plan for the worst. Every human colony has emergency supplies, evacuation plans, defensive measures. We learned from our history on Earth. Wars, disasters, extinctions. We survived all of them by being ready for what might come. He gestured to the map, and the display zoomed in on the Kepler 442 system. The Draknath Empire thinks this is just another empty system. They think we are bluffing when we say it is protected. They will send their fleets expecting no resistance. What they will find is 50 orbital defense platforms, each one armed with railguns that can punch through any armor they have. They will find 100 stealth frigates waiting in the asteroid belt. They will find sensor networks that can track every ship they send. The display showed simulations of the defenses in action. Ships appearing from nowhere, firing with precision, disappearing before return fire could find them. The defense platforms rotating to track multiple targets at once. Their railguns firing metal slugs at a fraction of the speed of light. We have been running simulations for years, Mireille added. Every scenario, every tactic they might use. We are ready. Bora looked worried. But if we destroy their fleet, will the Empire not just send more? They have thousands of ships. We cannot fight them all. We do not need to fight them all, Jinho replied. We only need to make them question whether it is worth the cost. The Draknath Empire is powerful because other species surrender before the fighting starts. They are used to easy victories. When they realize humanity will fight back, will make them bleed for every system they try to take, they will reconsider. Taman nodded slowly. It is a message. The first battle is not about winning or losing. It is about showing them who we are. Exactly, Jinho said. Every species in the galaxy needs to see that humanity will not be pushed around. We will defend ourselves. We will honor our warnings, and we will make anyone who ignores those warnings regret it. The room was quiet for a moment. Then a young woman named Hana spoke up. What if they do not stop after the first battle? What if the Empress is too proud to back down? Jinho's expression darkened. Then, we show them the next level. We have contingencies. Plans within plans. Humanity did not come to the stars to conquer anyone. But we will not be victims either. He turned back to the photograph on the desk, visible through the conference room's open door. His family, smiling under an alien sky. 50,000 people died. At New Horizon, we could not save them, but we can make sure their deaths meant something. We can make sure that no one takes humanity lightly ever again. Mireille closed the presentation. The Draknath fleet will arrive at Kepler 442 inches 60 hours. All defensive systems are online and ready. Admiral Donghyun, is in command of our forces. He has his orders. What are his orders? Bora asked. Jinho looked at her. Give them one more chance to leave. If they refuse, if they fire first, then we end this quickly and decisively. We show them that humanity keeps its promises, even the ones wrapped in warnings. The meeting ended, and the delegates filed out quietly. Each of them understood what was coming. Some were scared, others were determined, but all of them knew that the next few days would change everything. Humanity would no longer be seen as harmless newcomers. They would be seen as a species that should not be tested. Jinho returned to his desk and picked up the photograph. He traced his fingers over the faces of his wife and children, preserved forever in that moment of happiness. I warned them, he whispered to the empty room. I gave them every chance. What happens next is not on us. Outside the window, the stars continued their eternal dance, uncaring and cold. Somewhere in that vast darkness, a fleet of Draknath warships was moving toward Kepler 442. Confident in their strength, certain of their victory, they had no idea what was waiting for them. The bridge of the Draknath flagship times Eternal Glory times hummed with activity. Fleet Commander Zarthus stood at the center, his 4 arms crossed behind his back as he watched the view screen. 300 warships followed his lead, moving through space like a school of predatory fish. Each ship was massive, covered in weapons and armor that had conquered dozens of worlds. Zarthus felt confident. Why would he not? These humans, these newcomers who barely understood galactic politics, would learn the same lesson everyone else had learned. Status report, Zarthus commanded. His second officer, a younger Draknath named Velrin, checked the displays. We will reach the Kepler 442 system in 20 minutes. Long-range scans show no defensive installations, no military presence. The system appears exactly as reported. Commander. Empty. Zarthus nodded. Of course it was empty. The human diplomat had been bluffing, trying to seem more important than he was. It was embarrassing. Really, did they think the mighty Draknath Empire would be frightened by empty words? Prepare to claim the system for the Empire, Zarthus said. Deploy survey teams to all planets and begin resource assessment. This will be over before dinner. The crew laughed. It was going to be an easy day. 20 minutes later, the fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. The view screen showed a typical star system, a yellow sun, several planets, asteroid belts, nothing unusual. Zarthus smiled. Another easy conquest. Then the sensors started screaming. Commander! Velrin's voice was suddenly urgent. Multiple contacts. Defense platforms are appearing all around us. They were cloaked. On the view screen, space itself seemed to ripple and tear. 50 massive platforms materialized from nothing, forming a perfect sphere around the Draknath fleet. Each platform was covered in weapon ports and sensor arrays that glowed with active power. Zarthus felt his confidence waver. How many ships? 100 human vessels detected, Velrin reported. Frigates and destroyers, emerging from the asteroid belt. They were hiding in the debris field. We never saw them. The view screen split into multiple images. Human ships, sleek and dark, moved with precision. They did not look like the peaceful exploration vessels humanity was known for. These were warships, designed for one purpose. A communication channel opened without being requested. Admiral Donghyun's face appeared on the screen. He was an older human, his hair gray, his expression carved from stone. He wore a simple uniform with minimal decoration. Behind him, the bridge of his flagship was quiet and focused. Fleet Commander Zarthus, Donghyun said in perfect Draknath. You were warned not to enter this system. I am authorized to give you one final chance. Turn your fleet around and leave immediately. If you do not, we will consider your presence an act of war. Zarthus felt anger replace his surprise. Who were these humans to give him orders? Admiral, you are outgunned. 3-1. You have no chance of victory. Stand down, and perhaps the Empire will show mercy. Donghyun's expression did not change. You have 30 seconds to begin your withdrawal. After that, we will open fire. This is your only warning. Zarthus cut the communication. He looked at his officers, saw their uncertainty. That made him even angrier. They are bluffing. 300 ships against 100. The mathematics are simple. All ships, advance. Target their flagship first. Show these humans what happens when they challenge the Draknath Empire. The fleet moved forward. Weapon systems powered up. Targeting computers locked onto human ships. For a moment, everything was silent. Then a single human frigate, the Times Silent Vigil **, drifted too close to a Draknath destroyer. Whether it was intentional or accidental, no one would ever know. The Draknath ship fired first, a plasma bolt that cut through space like a burning spear. The Times Silent Vigil ** exploded instantly, torn apart in a flash of light and debris. 400 human crew members died in less than a second. Admiral Donghyun watched from his flagship as the Times Silent Vigil ** vanished from his sensors. He had known Captain Yuna personally. She had a wife and a son waiting for her back on Earth. Now she was gone, along with everyone under her command. He pressed a button on his command chair. All ships, all platforms, weapons free, fire at will. What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for generations. The 50 defense platforms fired simultaneously. Each platform carried 6 railguns, weapons that used electromagnetic force to launch metal slugs at incredible speed. 300 projectiles crossed the distance between the platforms and the Draknath fleet in less than 3 seconds. They hit with the force of nuclear weapons. Draknath shields flared and failed. Armor that had withstood countless battles was punched through like paper. 6 warships exploded immediately. Their reactors breached. 12 more suffered critical damage, spinning helplessly as atmosphere vented into space. Before the Draknath could respond, the human ships attacked. They did not charge forward like traditional warships. Instead, they used hit-and-run tactics, appearing from behind asteroids, firing their weapons, and disappearing before return fire could reach them. Their missiles were smart, dodging defensive fire and finding weak points in Draknath armor. Zarthus watched in horror as his fleet fell apart. But the platforms were heavily armored and positioned perfectly. The Draknath fleet had to split their fire between the platforms and the ships, making neither effort effective. Meanwhile, human weapons kept firing with mechanical precision. A massive Draknath battlecruiser, the Times Iron Fang *, managed to destroy 1 defense platform. The humans celebrated for exactly 3 seconds, then adjusted their tactics. The remaining 49 platforms shifted position, covering the gap their fallen sister had left. Human plasma lances cut through space, superheated beams that melted through Draknath armor. Missile swarms overwhelmed point defense systems. And always, the railguns kept firing. Every 3 seconds, another volley of metal slugs hammered into the Draknath fleet. 15 minutes into the battle, 50 Draknath ships were destroyed or disabled. The humans had lost 3 frigates and 1 defense platform. Zarthus could not believe it. The mathematics had been simple. 300 against 100. How were they losing? Velrun provided the answer, his voice shaking. Commander, their weapons are more advanced than ours. Their ships are faster. Their targeting systems are perfect. They are fighting like they have done this 1,000 times before. Impossible, Zarthus said, but even he could hear the doubt in his voice. Call for reinforcements. Request immediate support from the 3rd Fleet. The 3rd Fleet is 6 hours away, Commander. We will not last 6 hours. Zarthus looked at the view screen and saw the truth. His fleet was being systematically destroyed. Every minute, more ships went dark. The humans fought without mercy, without hesitation. They moved like water, flowing around his defenses, finding every weakness, exploiting every mistake. 20 minutes into the battle, 100 Dracnoth ships were gone. The human losses stood at 8 ships total. Admiral Dong-hyun watched the battle from his command chair. His face showed no satisfaction, no joy. This was not a victory to celebrate. This was a lesson that had to be taught. Admiral, his communications officer reported, the Dragnath flagship is attempting to signal us. Put them through. Zarthus appeared on the screen. He looked different now. His confidence was gone, replaced by fear. Admiral Dong-hyun, I request a ceasefire. We will withdraw immediately. Please, stop the attack. Dong-hyun studied the Dracnoth commander for a long moment. You were warned, Commander. Your empire was told clearly not to enter this system. You chose to ignore that warning. You chose to fire first. 400 of my people are dead because of your choices. I did not know, Zarthus said quietly. We did not know humanity had such strength. That was the point, Dong-hyun replied. We do not advertise our strength. We do not threaten or boast. But when someone pushes us, when someone crosses the line, we respond. You are going to return to your empress and tell her what happened here. You are going to tell her that humanity keeps its word, even when that word is a warning. He gestured to his tactical officer. Disable their flagship. Do not destroy it. I want them alive to carry the message. Human missiles struck the times, eternal glory times with precise shots. The ship's engines exploded. Its weapons went offline. But the life support remained intact. The ship drifted, helpless. But its crew would survive. The remaining Dracnoth vessels are retreating, Admiral, the tactical officer reported. 70 ships left. They are jumping to faster than light speeds. Dong-hyun nodded. Let them go. This was never about destroying their entire fleet. This was about showing them the cost of ignoring our warnings. The bridge was silent. Around them, damaged human ships began rescue operations. Crews searched for survivors from the destroyed frigates. Medical teams prepared for casualties. Repair crews assessed damage to the defense platforms. It was over. The battle had lasted 23 minutes. 230 Dracnoth warships were destroyed or disabled. Humanity had lost 11 ships. Admiral Dong-hyun stood and walked to the view screen. In the distance, he could see the memorial moon, the place where 50,000 names were carved in stone. We warned them. Captain Yuna, he said quietly to the empty space where the Time's silent vigil times had been. We gave them every chance. Rest easy. Far away, on the diplomatic station, Jinho watched the battle reports come in. Mireille stood beside him, her face pale. It is done, she said. No, Jinho replied. This is just the beginning. Now the Empress knows we were not bluffing. The question is, will she accept this lesson? Or will her pride demand revenge? They would have their answer soon enough. The emergency session of the Galactic Council began within hours of the battle. The Grand Hall was packed. Every species that had a seat on the council sent representatives. Many more crowded the observation galleries, wanting to witness what everyone was calling the human incident. Jinho walked into the chamber with Mireille at his side. This time, he was not alone. Behind him came Ambassador Taejun, a tall man with cold eyes who represented humanity's military interests. Taejun rarely spoke, but when he did, people listened. His reputation preceded him. The murmur of alien voices fell silent as the humans took their seats. Everyone stared. The species that had seemed so harmless, so peaceful, had just destroyed 2/3 of a Dracnoth battle fleet. The entire galaxy was trying to understand what that meant. Empress Valtrine sat on her throne, but she looked different now. Her elegant posture was gone, replaced by barely contained fury. Her 4 hands gripped the armrests so tightly that the crystal cracked. When she saw Jinho, her eyes burned with hatred. High Chancellor Thoros floated to the center of the chamber. His ancient voice carried weariness that came from seeing too many wars, too many species making the same mistakes over and over. This emergency session is called to address the military engagement that occurred in the Kepler 442 system. Empress Valtrine has requested the floor to present charges against humanity. Valtrine stood, and when she spoke, her voice shook with rage. Members of the Council, you have just witnessed an unprovoked massacre. My fleet entered a system that was unclaimed, unused, and legally open to colonization. Without warning, without mercy, the humans attacked. They destroyed 230 warships. 50,000 Draknath soldiers are dead. This is an act of war that cannot stand. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Some species nodded in agreement. The Draknath Empire was powerful, and many smaller species feared what would happen if Valtrine decided to seek revenge. But others looked uncertain. They had heard about Jinho's warning during the previous session. They wondered if there was more to this story. Jinho remained seated, his expression calm. He did not interrupt. He simply waited. Valtrine continued, her voice rising. I demand that the Council condemn humanity for this atrocity. I demand reparations for the lives lost, and I demand that humanity surrender all military installations in the Kepler 442 system immediately. If these demands are not met, the Draknath Empire will have no choice but to respond with overwhelming force. She sat back down, breathing heavily. The chamber erupted with voices. Species argued with each other, some supporting Valtrine, others questioning her version of events. High Chancellor Thoros raised a limb for silence. The human delegation will now respond to these charges. Ambassador Jinho, the floor is yours. Jinho stood slowly. He did not walk to the center of the chamber this time. He simply stood beside his seat and spoke in a clear, steady voice. Thank you, Chancellor. Before I respond, I would like to present evidence to the Council. Mireille tapped her tablet, and holographic displays appeared throughout the chamber. They showed the previous Council session, the moment when Jinho stood and warned Valtrine not to enter the Kepler 442 system. The recording played for everyone to see and hear. Jinho's voice was clear. Your Majesty, I strongly advise you to reconsider. You are stepping where you should not have. Then, Valtrine's response. Mocking and dismissive. Then Jinho's final warning. We will do what we must to protect our interests. Entering the Kepler 442 system without human authorization will be considered an act of aggression. We will respond accordingly. The recording ended. The chamber was silent. Jinho spoke into that silence. I warned Empress Valtrine clearly and publicly. I told her that the system was under human protection. I told her that entering without authorization would be considered an act of war. She chose to ignore that warning. She chose to send her fleet anyway. Alders. Alders. Alders 1. Alders 1. The displays changed, now showing footage from the battle itself. The timestamp was clearly visible. It showed the Draknath fleet entering the system, advancing despite Admiral Dongyun's warning. And then the Draknath destroyer firing first on the Time's silent vigil asterisk. The Draknath Empire fired first, Jinho said quietly. They destroyed a human frigate. They killed 400 of my people. Only then did we return fire. This was not an unprovoked massacre. This was self-defense. Empress Valtrine stood again, her voice sharp. You lured us into a trap. You hid your weapons, pretended to be weak, and then ambushed my fleet. Jinho finally looked directly at her. We did not lure anyone, Your Majesty. We warned you. Multiple times. You chose not to listen because you believed humanity was too weak to matter. That was your mistake, not ours. Ambassador Taejun stood beside Jinho. When he spoke, his voice was harder, less diplomatic. The Galactic Council should understand something important. The Kepler 442 system is not the only defensive installation humanity has built. We have 7 such systems throughout our territory. Each one is as heavily defended as Kepler 442. Each one is ready to respond to any aggression. The chamber erupted. 7 systems? Species that had dismissed humanity as harmless now looked at the human delegation with fear and suspicion. If they had hidden this much military strength, what else were they hiding? A delegate from the Luminar Collective, a species known for its peaceful nature, spoke up. Counselor Myreth's voice was gentle but concerned. Ambassador Jinho, why did humanity hide its military capabilities? Why not register these installations with the Council, as required by galactic law? Jinho turned to face Myreth. Because, Counselor, we learned long ago that appearing weak has advantages. Species underestimate us. They leave us alone. We can focus on building our civilization in peace. But when someone does push us, when someone decides to test humanity, we are ready. We have always been ready. Myreth nodded slowly, understanding but still troubled. This approach seems aggressive for a species that claims to want peace. We do want peace, Jinho replied. But we will not sacrifice our security for it. Too many species in this galaxy believe that peaceful means weak. We are proving that assumption wrong. High Chancellor Thoros floated forward. This council was founded on the principle that disputes should be resolved through diplomacy, not violence. Humanity has demonstrated military power, yes, but at what cost? Can we truly have peace when every species is hiding weapons and waiting for conflict? Jinho met the ancient counselor's eyes. Chancellor, with respect, this council has allowed aggressive empires to expand unchecked for centuries. How many small civilizations have been absorbed by larger ones? How many species have lost their independence because they were too weak to defend themselves? Humanity refuses to become another statistic. We will defend ourselves, and we will do it effectively. Empress Valtrine stood again, her voice cold. Fine words from a species that has been part of this council for only 50 years. You think you can lecture us about galactic politics? You think your hidden weapons make you powerful? Let me tell you what power really is. She gestured, and her own holographic displays appeared. They showed star maps of the Draknoth Empire, fleet deployments, military strength. The Draknoth Empire has 2,000 capital ships, 50,000 support vessels, military installations on 1,000 worlds. We have conquered and civilized entire sectors. What you did at Kepler 442 was embarrassing. Yes, it was unexpected, but it changes nothing. If I order my full military to attack human space, your 7 defensive systems will not save you. The threat hung in the air like poison. Several smaller species looked terrified. If the Draknoth Empire and humanity went to war, the entire galaxy might be dragged into the conflict. But Jinho did not look afraid. He looked tired. Your Majesty, I strongly advise you not to make that decision. Valtrine laughed bitterly. Another warning? Will you warn me to death? Little human? No, Jinho said quietly. But I will give you information that might change your mind. He nodded to Mireille, who brought up new data on the displays. Numbers, trajectories, launch dates. 3 weeks ago, humanity launched a series of missiles. These are not ordinary missiles. They are relativistic kinetic projectiles. Each one is the size of a small ship, traveling at 90% of the speed of light. They are currently on course to impact the Draknoth homeworld. The chamber went absolutely silent. Every species understood what that meant. At 90% light speed, the missiles were essentially invisible. They could not be intercepted. They could not be stopped. And when they hit, each one would have the force of multiple nuclear weapons. Empress Valtrine stared at Jinho in disbelief. You are bluffing. You would not dare. The missiles were launched as a contingency, Jinho said. They will arrive at your homeworld in 3 days. Only I have the authorization codes to recall them. If those codes are not transmitted exactly 48 hours before impact, the missiles will continue on their course," Taejun added, his voice cold. "We estimated that 12 such impacts would be sufficient to cause catastrophic damage to your primary population centers. We launched 30 missiles to ensure redundancy." Valtrine's face went pale. Her 4 hands trembled. "You cannot do this. This is genocide." "It is deterrence," Jinho corrected. "We launched those missiles the moment your fleet entered our space. We hoped we would not need them. We hoped you would accept the lesson from the first battle and withdraw. But if you order your empire to attack humanity, those missiles will not be recalled. Your homeworld will burn, and millions of your people will die." High Chancellor Thoros spoke, his voice heavy with sadness. "You planned this from the beginning. You knew the Empress would not stop after one defeat. You anticipated her pride." "Rever." "Yes," Jinho admitted. "Humanity has studied galactic politics for 50 years. We understand how empires think. We understand pride and revenge. We prepared for every possibility." "Rest." Counselor Mirith looked horrified. "This is madness. You are holding an entire world hostage." "We are ensuring our survival," Jinho said. "Empress Valtrine threatened to destroy humanity with her full military might. We have responded with the only deterrent that would make her reconsider. We do not want to use these weapons. We want peace. But we will not allow our species to be wiped out because someone decided we were too weak to fight back." The chamber descended into chaos. Species argued loudly, some demanding humanity be punished, others calling for restraint. Everyone understood that they were watching history being made, though no one was sure if it was a history of peace or a history of unprecedented destruction. Finally, a new voice spoke. A communication channel opened from the Draknath homeworld. The image showed a younger Draknath, similar in appearance to Valtrine but with gentler eyes. "I am Prince Kaldros, heir to the Draknath Empire. I speak on behalf of the 3 billion citizens of our homeworld." Valtrine looked shocked. "Kaldros, what are you doing?" Saving our people, mother," the prince said quietly. "Ambassador Jinho, the Draknath people do not want war. We did not ask for this conflict. Please, can we negotiate a peaceful resolution?" Jinho looked at the prince for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Yes, Your Highness. We can negotiate. But the terms are not flexible. Your empire will withdraw all forces from human space immediately. You will pay reparations for the crew of the Times, Silent Vigil, **, and you will sign a non-aggression treaty guaranteeing that the Draknath Empire will not enter human territory without explicit permission. And if we agree to these terms, you will recall the missiles?" Kaldros asked. "Yes." Empress Valtrine stood, her voice breaking. "You cannot do this, Kaldros. I am the Empress. I make these decisions." Prince Kaldros looked at his mother with sadness. "And your decisions have brought us to the edge of destruction, mother. I am sorry. But the Council of Lords has voted. We accept humanity's terms." The communication ended. Empress Valtrine collapsed back onto her throne. Defeated. Her empire remained powerful, but her pride was shattered. She had underestimated humanity twice, and twice it had cost her dearly. Jinho transmitted the recall codes. Far away in space, 30 missiles received new instructions and began to slow down, their terrible journey ending before it could reach its destination. High Chancellor Thoros floated to the center of the chamber. "Let this be a lesson to all species in this council. Humanity has proven that strength comes in many forms. Underestimate no one. Respect all warnings. And always, always, choose diplomacy over violence." The session ended, and the species filed out quietly. The galaxy had changed today. Humanity was no longer seen as harmless newcomers. They were now seen as a species that should be approached with caution and respect. Jinho walked out beside Mirai. She looked exhausted. Do you think we did the right thing? I think we did what we had to do, Jinho replied. We gave them warnings. We gave them chances. They chose to ignore us. Now they know better. But at what cost? Mirai asked quietly. Jinho had no answer for that. 2 weeks passed. The galaxy was still talking about what everyone now called the Kepler incident. News traveled across thousands of star systems. Humanity, the species that everyone had dismissed as harmless explorers, had destroyed a Dracnoth fleet and held an entire homeworld hostage. The story grew with each retelling, becoming legend. On the human diplomatic station, life slowly returned to normal. Delegations came and went, reports were filed, treaties were negotiated, but everyone could feel the change in how other species treated them now. Where before there had been dismissive politeness, now there was careful respect. Jinho stood in his office, looking out at the stars. He had not slept well since the battle. Every night, he saw the time's silent vigil times exploding, saw Captain Yuna and her crew dying in an instant. 400 lives lost because someone had to learn a lesson. Mirai entered carrying a data tablet. The final casualty reports are in. 11 ships lost. 2,347 crew members dead. Another 800 wounded, most of them recovering. Jinho closed his eyes. Numbers. Always numbers. But each number was a person. Someone's child, someone's parent, someone's friend. And the Dracnoth? 53,000 dead. Another 20,000 wounded. Mirai set the tablet down. The Empire has completed its withdrawal from our borders. They have paid the reparations as agreed. Prince Kaldros sent a personal message saying he hopes our species can build a better relationship in the future. And the Empress? Mirai hesitated. She has been removed from power by the Council of Lords. Too many losses. Too much humiliation. Kaldros is the new emperor. Early reports suggest he is more interested in peaceful expansion than military conquest. Jinho nodded slowly. That was something, at least. One warlike ruler replaced by someone more reasonable. Maybe some good had come from all this death. A communication alert chimed. High Chancellor Thoros was requesting a private meeting. Jinho accepted, and the ancient counselor's image appeared on the screen. Ambassador Jinho, Thoros said, his voice tired. I wanted to speak with you before the formal recognition ceremony tomorrow. What ceremony? Jinho asked. The Council is officially recognizing human sovereignty over all systems within your declared borders. No species will enter human space without explicit permission. Your defensive networks are being registered and legitimized under galactic law. You have achieved what you wanted. Complete security for your people. Jinho should have felt satisfaction. This was everything humanity had worked toward. Instead, he just felt empty. At what cost? Chancellor. Thoros was silent for a moment. I have lived for 3,000 years, Ambassador. I have seen the rise and fall of hundreds of civilizations. I have watched species destroy themselves through pride, through fear, through simple misunderstanding. What happened at Kepler 442 troubles me deeply. Because we used violence? Because it worked, Thoros said quietly. You showed the galaxy that species who prepare for war, who build hidden weapons, and wait for conflict, can achieve security through fear. Other species are watching. They are learning the lesson you taught. I fear we are entering an age where every civilization will hide its strength, where every diplomatic negotiation will carry the shadow of hidden weapons. Jinho felt the weight of those words. We did not want this. We only wanted to be left alone. I believe you, Thoros said. But intentions matter less than consequences. You have changed the galaxy, Ambassador. I hope you are prepared to live with that change. The communication ended, leaving Jinho alone with his thoughts. That evening, Jinho and Mireille traveled to the Kepler 442 system. Admiral Dongyun met them at the orbital station, his face solemn. Together, they took a shuttle down to the memorial moon. The memorial wall stretched for nearly a kilometer, carved into the side of a mountain. 50,000 names, each one illuminated by soft lights that mimicked Earth's sunset. At the base of the wall, fresh flowers had been placed. Some were from Earth, preserved carefully for this journey. Others were alien flowers, gifts from species across the galaxy who wanted to pay their respects. Jinho walked slowly along the wall until he found the names he was looking for. His wife, his daughter, his son. His fingers traced the carved letters, feeling the cold stone under his fingertips. "I kept my promise," he whispered. "No one will ever dismiss what happened here. No one will ever forget. They know now. They all know." Mireille stood a short distance away, giving him privacy. She had her own names to visit, friends and colleagues who had died 30 years ago. Admiral Donghyun approached Jinho. "I wanted you to know. We have added new names to the memorial. The crew of the Times, Silent Vigil Times, and all those who died in the battle. They are part of this story now, part of why this place matters." Jinho looked at the Admiral. Donghyun considered the question carefully. "I think we did what had to be done. The galaxy operates on strength. If we had backed down, if we had let the Draknoth take this system, it would never have stopped. Next time, it would have been another system. Then, another. Eventually, humanity would have been absorbed or destroyed. We drew a line. We defended it. That is what militaries do. But so many died." "Yes," Donghyun agreed. "And their deaths mean something. They mean that humanity will be taken seriously. They mean that future generations will live in a galaxy where no one dares to threaten us casually. Is that worth the cost? I honestly do not know. But I know the cost of not fighting would have been higher." They stood in silence for a while. 3 humans on a dead moon, surrounded by the names of those who had come before. Finally, Mireille spoke. "We should go. The recognition ceremony is tomorrow, and there is still preparation to do." As they walked back to the shuttle, Jinho noticed something new. Construction equipment was being set up near the memorial. "What is that?" he asked. Donghyun smiled slightly. "The government approved an expansion. We are building a museum here. A place where people can learn about New Horizon, about the disaster, about everything that came after. We want future generations to understand what happened and why it matters." "A museum of warnings," Jinho said quietly. "A museum of remembrance," Donghyun corrected. "So that no one forgets, and no one has to learn these lessons again." The next day, the Galactic Council held the recognition ceremony. Representatives from 100 species attended. They signed treaties, made speeches, and officially acknowledged humanity's place in galactic politics. Jinho stood beside Mireille and Ambassador Taejun, accepting congratulations and well wishes. But he noticed something interesting. Several smaller species, civilizations that had been bullied by larger empires for generations, approached the human delegation privately. They asked questions about defensive networks, about deterrence strategies, about how to make themselves strong enough that no one would threaten them. Jinho answered their questions carefully. But he felt Thoros's warning echo in his mind. They were learning the lesson. They were learning that hidden strength and careful warnings could buy security. The galaxy was changing, and humanity had been the catalyst. Weeks later, back on Earth, Jinho stood in his small apartment. It was late, and the city lights stretched out below his window. He had been offered a larger residence, medals, recognition. He had declined it all. He was not a hero. He was just a diplomat who had done his job. A message came through from Admiral Donghyun. More defensive networks were being built throughout human space. New technologies were being developed. The military was expanding, preparing for threats that might never come. Humanity had tasted security through strength, and they were not going to give it up. Another message came from Mireille. She was being reassigned to diplomatic outreach, helping smaller species navigate the complex politics of the Council. She was good at it, patient, and wise. She would make a difference. And a final message. This one from an unexpected source. Prince Kaldros, now Emperor Kaldros, sent a personal note. Ambassador Jinho, I wanted you to know that I am working to reform my empire. The old ways, the aggressive expansion, the dismissal of other species, these things will change. It will take time, perhaps generations, but we will become better neighbors. Thank you for the harsh lesson. We needed it, even if we did not want it. Jinho read the message 3 times. Maybe that was the real cost and the real victory. Not the battle, not the threats, but the change that came after. An empire, learning to respect others. A galaxy learning that warnings should be heeded. Species realizing that peace required strength and wisdom, not just good intentions. He opened his desk drawer and pulled out the old photograph. His family, smiling under an alien sky. They would never know what their deaths had led to, what changes had rippled across the galaxy because of them. Maybe that was better. Let them rest in peace, preserved in that moment of happiness. Jinho set the photograph on his desk where he could see it. Then he opened his computer and began writing a report. There were new diplomatic initiatives to plan, new relationships to build. The galaxy had changed, but the work continued. Outside his window, Earth turned slowly in the darkness. Somewhere above, defense satellites watched the stars. In shipyards throughout the system, new vessels were being built. In training facilities, crews prepared for missions they hoped would never come. Humanity was ready. Humanity would always be ready. And scattered across the galaxy, in the council chambers and military headquarters of 100 species, the lesson was being studied and remembered. The humans had warned them. The humans had been dismissed. The humans had proven their point with precision and overwhelming force. No one would make that mistake again. No one would step where they should not have. 5 years later, Jinho retired from diplomatic service. He moved to a small colony world on the edge of human space. A peaceful place where he could grow a garden and watch the sunsets. Sometimes, young diplomats would visit him, asking for advice, wanting to learn from his experience. He always told them the same thing. Prepare for the worst. Hope for the best. Give clear warnings. Keep your promises, even the ones wrapped in threats. And never, ever underestimate anyone, because someone, somewhere, is underestimating you. They would nod and take notes and eventually leave, eager to make their own mark on galactic politics. And Jinho would return to his garden, pulling weeds and watering plants, content in the knowledge that humanity was safe, not because they were the strongest or the smartest, but because they had shown the galaxy one simple truth. When humans say something, they mean it. The memorial on Kepler 442c continued to stand, visited by thousands every year. The names of 50,000 colonists and nearly 3,000 soldiers glowed in the artificial sunset, a reminder of the cost of peace and the price of security. And in the vast darkness between the stars, human ships patrolled silently, not looking for conflict, but ready for it. Not seeking empire, but defending what was theirs. A species that had come to the stars with hope and dreams, and had learned to back those dreams with steel and fire. The galaxy was at peace. A careful, watchful peace, built on respect and understanding, and the memory of what happened when someone ignored a warning. It was not perfect. It was not easy. But it was real, and it was lasting. And somewhere, in the quiet moments between negotiations and treaties and the daily work of diplomacy, Jinho would look up at the stars and whisper to the memory of his family, "We did it. We made sure it mattered. You did not die for nothing. The galaxy remembers. Thanks. Thanks for watching. With Henber 4. The stars did not answer. They never did. But somehow, that was enough.